Welcome to Boomer Being. Today my guest is Nina Caron. Nina is a nationally ranked competitive runner, an ACSM certified personal trainer, and nutritionist. Nina qualified for the Olympic Marathon Trials in 2004. Nina is the owner of NutriPoise LLC, a wellness and nutritional consulting business, as well as a trainer and fitness instructor at Latitude Andover. Welcome, Nina.
Thank you very much, Leslie. I'm really pleased to be here. Very excited to come and share my knowledge about nutrition and overall wellness with everybody, so thanks.
I've been waiting a long time to have you here.
This is going to be fun. Thank you.
Very inspirational.
Thanks.
So tell us, why does a client come to see you?
There are actually a wide variety of reasons why a person might come to see me to discuss a nutritional protocol or overall wellness and lifestyle management. One of the most common reasons, weight management, weight loss. As you know, that's a sort of at the forefront of a lot of people's minds, how to better manage their weight or how to lose weight. Another reason that an individual might come to consult with me about nutrition and lifestyle prevention or better management of certain types of metabolic disorders. For example, diabetes type 2 is a disorder, metabolic disorder, that can be very, very well managed through exercise and diet, and really would prevent the mandatory use of a medication to deal with that. So again, just tweaking a person's diet can really help not just manage diabetes type 2, but actually prevent it. Things such as IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, that's another common metabolic disorder that can be treated and much better managed through nutrition and diet. I work with some younger, in particular females, that have if you want to say, an unhealthy relationship with food. So I try to develop a strategy working with sometimes and often family members as well as the individual to develop a nutritional protocol to help them deal with things such as that. Also, because I am a competitive runner and I'm very tied up into the running community, I get a lot of running clients that want to learn how to better manage proper fueling for competitive events, because that's honestly the one big piece of the whole puzzle for athletes. A lot of times these athletes have the physical training down. It's never an issue with the training. It's usually that nutritional component is the piece of the puzzle that they're really missing. So they come to me and I try to help them solve that issue.
Wonderful.
It's fun. It's exciting.
Particularly if somebody could mitigate or even eliminate the use of medicine.
Oh, it's huge.
That's
huge.
It's a lifesaver.
Oh, it's great. I mean, and that prevents the use of diet and exercise to help better manage or prevent these issues. It just not only does it help to reduce symptoms, but it helps to reduce other complications that often occur with the use of medication. So it just has so many positive ramifications that I really love when I can do that for somebody.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think of nutrition broadly as well as getting down to fine-tuning what people should eat. So the first question that comes to mind is, what macronutrient groups do you recommend that people eat, and maybe what proportion of those groups?
Right. So if you're talking about macronutrients, there are three basic macronutrients. You have your carbohydrates, you have your proteins, and you have your fats. And honestly, my approach to anything, any issue, or any person, there has to be a basic understanding that everything is an individual case for me. So I can generalize, but just to sort of to just start with that premise that individuals do have to be addressed and taken into consideration when giving guidelines.
Sure.
However, in general, you want to try to include between 50 to 55% of your total caloric intake or your total dietary intake should come from carbohydrates. There are two types of carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates, which refers to highly refined sugars and your more complex carbohydrates. And I'm sure most of us, just from what we read and see on TV or talk about, most of us realize that it's those simple, highly refined sugars that we want to stay away from. Things like, I can give you some examples. Simple carbohydrates examples would be table sugar, jams, honey, things. What happens is simple carbohydrates are very easily and quickly digested. So as a result, your blood sugar, the result is that your blood glucose shoots way up at a very fast rate. So you're infusing your body with blood glucose almost immediately. The other type of carbohydrate is the complex carbohydrate. I wanted to also add, to go back to the simple carbohydrates, typically they are not nutrient dense, and really all they do is add calories. There's not a lot of nutrient density to simple carbohydrates. On the other hand, on the flip side, the complex carbohydrates are slowly digested, so there is a slow, gradual infusion into the bloodstream of sugar, and it allows for a much more stable blood glucose level. And that's basically what we're all shooting for, is to keep and manage our blood glucose levels over the course of the day. So it makes more sense to include in a person's diet a overall more complex carbohydrates. And I can give you some examples of those as, for example, starchy vegetables such as squash, sweet potatoes, whole grain breads, rice, things like that. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of carbohydrates that you want to include in your diet every single day. Those are the carbohydrates that are the healthy, the good carbohydrates that you want to make sure that you're getting plenty of.
That's good to know.
Proteins. You want to include approximately 20-25% of your diet should include good, healthy sources of protein. You can include extra lean sources of beef, animal protein, chicken, great source of protein, animal protein, turkey, eggs, dairy. That particular eggs are a good source of protein if, of course, you're not concerned with cholesterol, if you don't have a genetic or familial predisposition for a high cholesterol for yourself. So mm-hmm. you can include eggs, nuts, dairy, as cottage cheese, yogurt. Those are all really healthy sources of protein. And then the third category of the macronutrients would be the fats. And you want to obviously reach for the good fats, and we'll get into that. There are good fats, there are bad fats.
I was going to ask you if you could differentiate.
Sure. So that's the third category of macronutrients, the fats, and you really want to, when discussing or trying to come up with a protocol for fat intake, there are two things that you really want to think about. You want to think about the quality of the fat and the quantity of the fat. And the simple truth is that fats are an essential, and this is something that I think a lot of us, or many of us, many individuals that aren't maybe well-versed in nutrition don't realize, that fats are actually an essential component of any healthy diet. I mean, there's so much fat fear out there. You say the word fat, or people, oh, no, I don't want to include, I just want to basically completely exclude that group or that macronutrient from my diet, and that's really not the way to look at it. Fat is an essential part of any healthy diet. There are many reasons why that we have to include fat in our diet. Fats provide necessary essential fatty acids which we all need to function. In order to transport fat-soluble vitamins A, D, and K, you need a certain level of fat in your system to be able to do that. Fats are also necessary for proper skin integrity, and they're necessary for adequate brain function, especially infants, children. If they're not given a certain amount of fat in their diet, if they're not provided with a certain level of fat in their diet, it can impair cognitive functioning and development later on.
So Nina, would that be like olive oil? Is that?
So, and yes, there are two types. So as I said, the good fats and the bad fats. We want to include these good fats. There are two, you can break down the good fats into two different categories. They're the monounsaturated fats and the polyunsaturated fats. Those two categories are included under that umbrella of good fat. Monounsaturated fats include things such a variety of nuts, almonds, cashews, hazelnuts, olive oil, as you mentioned. So I always, whenever I'm making salads, pasta salads, regular salads, I always include olive oil as part of my salad dressing. It's when I'm cooking something that has to that needs any sort of an oil, I usually reach for olive oil, or canola oil is another healthy alternative. Avocados fall under this category. Peanut butter. The second type of healthy good fat, polyunsaturated fats. These fats are primarily found in the fatty fishes. I think most people here, if they're not really unsure which type, salmon is a fatty fish that is very high in polyunsaturated fat, and in particular omega-3 fats. Herring is another fatty fish which contains a healthy amount of good fat. Trout, tuna, walnuts, flaxseed, corn oil. So these are different types of foods that include the good fats, the ones that we want, that actually help to promote wellness. They actually help to lower cholesterol. They help to, as I mentioned before, to keep cognitive functioning at a strong level, help with skin integrity, help with all those things. To get to the type of fat that we want to actually minimize in our diet, bad fats. There are two major types of, I would call, bad fat. The saturated fats and the trans fats. Saturated fats become solid when they are exposed to room temperature, and they tend to do a couple of things. They raise your cholesterol levels, and they're actually, there's a strong link or correlation between consumption of a certain level of saturated fat and the incidence of breast cancer and actually heart disease. You can find saturated fats in many animal products, meat, beef, full fat dairy products, eggs, and in tropical oils, such as, I'll give you a couple of examples, palm oil and coconut oil. And the unfortunate fact is that if you're not really looking at labels when you're shopping, there are many baked items, crackers, cookies, cakes that contain dangerous amounts of these tropical oils.
Excuse me, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I was going to ask that later on. When someone like me goes into the market,
Right.
I haven't been trained in nutrition. I try to look at labels, but I think maybe many of us don't know what to look
Right.
for. In other words, you can try to educate yourself.
Exactly,
But
right.
what should we look for, as you said,
Right.
and what should we avoid?
Right.
We all know the trans fats
Right,
now
right, transfer, right.
are bad.
And that was another group besides the saturated fat, the trans fat. You want to really minimize how much almost completely eliminate trans fats from your diet. And again, these fats are found in, if you're looking at labels, you really want to choose foods that actually have no trans fat, very limited amount of saturated fat. You want to keep, when you're scanning a label, you want to look at the sugar content, total fat content. All these things are really important so that you can evaluate. Whenever I am trying to put together a protocol and I'm discussing, how to do that with my client, what I talk about oftentimes is the nutrient density of a food. So I think we all have to realize, like in life, no situation is perfect, no person is perfect, no food is perfect. I mean, there are always going to be a level of negative to there are always going to be positive and negative aspects to a food. But what I always try to do is look at the person, take a look and evaluate what are the person's medical issues maybe, what are their long-term goals, their short-term goals, what are they trying to achieve from our meeting, what are we looking to accomplish, and based on that I evaluate and explain to them what the nutrient densities of particular foods are, and why am I choosing these foods to include in their protocol or program.
Excellent. Very, very helpful. So that leads me to ask,
Sure.
in the course of a day, you're working with a client.
Right.
There must be some formula that you have. I realize that you said a lot of these things have to be, studied in terms of the person, but generally,
yes.
How often should we eat?
Okay.
Meals and snacks.
That's a great question, and that's one of the number one questions I get from clients in general. What I would say is this: more often is better, smaller is better, and that I can say emphatically is true. You want to space your eating sessions, if you want to call it that, because I don't really like to talk about meals per se anymore. Almost like when you sit down to eat, I'll say, when you sit down to consume a breakfast, say, and a snack, lunch, snack, or a dinner, you want to think about how your day is set up. What are you looking to do, accomplish, whatever. But again, more often is better. So I would say 5 to 6 times over the course of a day would be my personal recommendation for eating meals and snacks.
So like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then a mid-morning snack and a mid-afternoon snack?
So what I typically do is set up breakfast, set up a mid-morning snack, a lunch, mid-afternoon snack, and a dinner. And again, depending on, say, a client's stage of life, activity, if the individual is an athlete, I have to take that piece into consideration when designing maybe an after dinner snack or type of a supplement. But in general, 5 to 6 times a day is my rule of thumb. Smaller portions. If I had to give you a ballpark as far as caloric intake, so if you're talking, a typical 2,000 to 2,200 calorie diet, probably between 300 or 400 calories for each session. And again, there has to be a bit of flexibility in that, right?
So again, it's now mid-morning. I'm hungry.
Right.
What do I reach for? Do I reach for a yogurt, or what would be a good snack for the average person?
Okay. There are several snacks that I would advocate for somebody at that particular time of the day. Maybe a 7 to 8 dried apricots with a handful of almonds, 8 ounces of a low-fat or non-fat yogurt with some berries, a small bowl of oatmeal with some almonds and berries mixed in, maybe some hummus, a couple of tablespoons of hummus with some pretzels, or maybe some whole grain bread, even a smoothie. I mean, a well put together smoothie can be extremely nutrient dense, has a great deal of satiety value. So in other words, it'll keep you feeling full for a long period of time. It'll boost your energy. It'll boost your vitamin and mineral intake. And they're great. They're delicious. I have a number of fabulous smoothie recipes that I give out to my clients, and I've gotten rave reviews from them. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. And is dark chocolate, part of that?
It can be. It's funny that you mentioned that, because one of my smoothie recipes is a chocolate mint smoothie, and it does have some dark chocolate in the smoothie. In particular for athletic recovery. So if I'm talking to an athlete and I'm trying to put together a protocol for workouts and post-recovery fuel for this particular person, a lot of times I'll advocate a smoothie or some chocolate milk. It's a great dark chocolate smoothie or dark chocolate milk. It's a great post-workout recovery fuel. Yeah, because of antioxidant value, chocolate does. Believe me, I know many of us are chocolate lovers, and there are some redeeming qualities, especially with the dark chocolate. Right.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
So now we want to talk about the average family, again, with no, prevalent disease
concerns,
or issue.
Right.
And somebody says, okay, now I really want to start cooking healthier than I have been for my family.
Okay.
Do we have some rules of thumb for them?
Right. So I always like to talk about first and foremost how to achieve clean eating, how to achieve a healthy lifestyle mindset, which translates into healthful eating. It starts in the grocery store. So what I try to teach my clients is how to shop smart, how to stock well at home, how to pack efficiently so that you can take these healthy, nutrient-dense foods and with you, because we all know, I think the culture in general, our society, we are all extremely busy. I mean, I can speak for myself. I mean, I feel honestly that almost every day I'm in like time deficit mode. So what I try to do and what I try to teach my clients, if we can be prepared, you know, if that means going shopping on the weekend, and sometimes I bring my clients with me to the Whole Foods, and I go through and we bring a list and we go through the store and I explain to them how to choose nutrient-dense foods that will maximize nutrient density, will maximize efficiency, and we start there. My clients learn how to shop well, how to shop smart, and once they learn that skill, how to stock these particular foods, you know, so for example, whole grain foods, whole grain breads, whole grain crackers, legumes. I always recommend that my clients have chickpeas on hand, black beans on hand, whole grain breads, whole grain crackers, almonds, some dried fruit, fresh sliced vegetables, hummus, yogurt, baked potatoes, sweet potatoes, quinoa, oatmeal. I'm just giving you some examples.
These are great.
Yeah, things that they're go-to foods. They're nutrient-dense go-to foods that I would feel confident that my clients, if they reach for those things or put them together, that they are going to be healthful choices for these individuals.
Now, would that include? You mentioned going to Whole Foods. Would that include organic, and do we evaluate if that's worth spending a little more?
And that's an excellent question, and I think that's an issue that I find a lot of people not struggle with, but maybe might be a little bit confused about.
Sure.
Let's face it, we all have to consider finances, expenditures, and it's a consideration because organic foods they are expensive. It's the reality. They cost more than buying non-organic. But I do think that there are, in certain instances, and I'll explain why I would recommend this. There are certain foods that, and this is an endorsement recommendation by the Environmental Working Group, there are certain foods that they rank based upon the pesticide residue on these foods that you should buy organic. You should buy these particular foods organically.
Great.
They should be grown organically, and for the reason I just referred to, the level of pesticide residue. Foods are such as apples, celeries, sweet bell peppers, peaches, strawberries, spinach, nectarines, grapes, lettuce, cucumbers, blueberries, and potatoes. There are two foods that this group ranks, if you want to say, highly toxic, and those are green beans and kale. These foods, as I just mentioned, tend to hold on to pesticide residue, and that's why you want to make sure that you're buying organic when you're buying those particular foods.
That's so helpful. Thank you, Nina.
You're welcome.
That's big. I also want to make sure that we have time to ask a few important questions. One is, let's talk about hydration.
Sure.
How much water? I always ask my guests this because it's always kind of startling to me how much water we do require to be healthy.
Right.
And what would your recommendation be?
I would say, as a rule of thumb, the average person wants to drink at least 8 8-ounce glasses of water a day. And that doesn't include caffeinated beverage. There are certain types of beverages that contain caffeine that not included because they're caffeinated beverages are diuretics, which will actually counteract the effects of water or hydrating fluids.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the big question, too, is how to implement healthy eating into these busy lives you referred to.
Right.
I want to make sure that
And
get your take on that.
Right. That's honestly, that's one of the number one issues, or one of the most prominent discussions that I end up having with my clients. Because of the nature of society, because of the busy lives that most of us lead, that's the challenge. The question I get often is, okay, Nina, I really do understand your recommendations, and I do want to follow this protocol. I don't know how am I going to do this? So to kind of refer back to what I was mentioning before about how it all starts, basically it starts with good planning. If you can shop smart, plan ahead, stock well, package efficiently, and be able to take these nutrient-dense foods with you if you're traveling, if you're at work, on your way to work, store things in the fridge, in your desk. If you can try to make it a habit to plan ahead and just prepare yourself, and you'll be able to bring these foods with you, if you're traveling, as I mentioned, or if you're at work. It's really just about, if I were to leave you with, the way I look at this whole thing, this nutrition and wellness in general, I mean, really for us at our stage, it's about enhancing the quality of our lives going forward. And a huge component of enhancing the quality of our life is to become better at fueling our bodies, become better at understanding how to incorporate nutrient-dense foods into our dietary protocol every single day. We're going to have more energy. We're going to feel better. And it's not just about looking better. Mm-hmm. Hey, we all want to look better, look great, but really, more importantly, it's about enhancing the quality of our lives and having more energy and just feeling better every single day.
Thank you so much. That was incredibly well said. It sounds like,
that it's really my philosophy. I mean, that what's it all? Why? What are we here for? We're all here to really enhance and improve the quality of our lives.
Well, it sounds like a launch pad for another show.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
No, this was great.
I appreciate it.
I've wanted to have you on for a long time now, and thank you for giving us your time.
You're welcome.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for being us on Boomer Being. See you next time.